Welcome to Footballers Convention Behind the Scenes. Our series we're starting here, we're going to take a look at some of the tools that powered the show. We had a few questions about how things work. The first one we had was, first of all, about this bad boy behind us, LaunchPad itself and all the data analytics that we're doing. So I'm joined here by Mr. Kevin Bowman, who you guys may recognize from a few episodes of the show. Kevin, thanks for joining me today to talk about LaunchPad.
Thanks for having me back here again.
Yeah, you're always welcome back. You didn't overstay your welcome for sure. So, first question is just tell everyone sort of who you are and what you do, what your relationship is with LaunchPad.
So I am the project manager for LaunchPad at Reality Check Systems, which is the broadcast graphics company that makes it. So basically, my job is to kind of plan out what kind of development we want to see in it, what new features we want to see, interact with clients and hear what they want, and troubleshoot different issues when they come up, or help them go and integrate new features, and then kind of just delegate the work that I feel like we need to do to all of our talented artists and programmers to get it to look like this at the end.
So are you the wizard behind this? Is that safe to say that you're expert level on LaunchPad?
I'm more like the Wizard of Oz behind it, where...
Oh, okay. Puppeteering a little smoke and mirrors, huh?
It seems like I'm doing a lot, but really it's just, I have a lot of really talented people on my team that do some good stuff. I'm just making sure it doesn't go off the rails in a different direction.
Sure.
So.
And some people who recognize LaunchPad, they've seen it in some other places before. So where in the world might they recognize it from? Where can it be seen outside, of course, of Footballers Convention?
Well, obviously, Footballers Convention is the #1 source.
Yes, of course.
Beyond that, in the UK, you can see it on the BBC. It's in Univision out of Miami, which is across America, and then beIN Sports is another one of our big clients, and that's worldwide. So you have that in the US, you have that in Spain, France, Turkey, the Middle East, might be it. And it's being used in Brazil right now by Globosat, their sport TV show. And you're going to be seeing it soon in Germany for Sky Germany.
Great.
So yeah, it's pretty worldwide. A lot of the major sports stations.
What are all the languages that it can be seen in?
Any language possible. So
do you, off the top of your head, what are some that you've seen it in before?
Well, English, Spanish, French, German, Turkish is always fun. Get to install Turkish fonts on the computer.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you majored in it, I think, or
yes,
minored, yeah.
Minored in Turkish fonts. Arabic and Portuguese, I believe is the ones we used. I think we've used it before also in Norwegian, potentially.
I think we have.
I think we did in Norwegian. Maybe Dutch, too. I don't know if Eredivisie did it.
So for the layperson at home, can you give us sort of just a brief overview of how exactly it works, what's going on behind the scenes, and what are the elements that people need to actually get LaunchPad going if someone wanted to start out with LaunchPad?
So the platform it runs on is VizRT, which is kind of the broadcast standard for graphics. So it's probably, unless you are a broadcaster, you haven't heard of it, but it is pretty... of
course. Yeah, they're the standard in real-time graphics. Yeah.
It's built on that platform, so you have to have licenses for that. And then within that, though, it's just basically all one scene. And I think actually the Viz people have told us that this is like the most complex scene they've ever seen anyone build with their software.
Congratulations on that. pat yourself on the back.
Dust the
Yeah,
the dirt off my
you guys
shoulders.
did it. You did it.
So it's really just all one scene with a whole heck of a lot of programming built in there to have logic of knowing when you touch this, pull this stuff up, and know there's a whole separate database that lives online that it talks to. So it references
In the cloud?
In the cloud, yeah. So it references this cloud-based data constantly and is constantly pulling in. The data itself is also getting real-time updates from Opta.
They're the data provider.
Yeah, one of the biggest data providers in the world. So we're getting real-time updates that are pushed to the cloud that are then pulled from the cloud to this guy who updates it live. So if goal is scored, 5 seconds later you can see that show in here. You can see who scored it. You can see where they shot it from. You can see the player stats update. You can see everything. There's we've shown like heat map data and stuff on Convention
I
before.
use that a lot for sure.
So you can kind of really get a lot of in-depth analytical stuff that happens because of all these different components that are talking to each other in real time.
So every time an idiot like me is pressing a button or interacting with it, that's making a data call to the cloud, and then am I understanding correctly?
Yeah.
I'm getting the payload back, and then it's all rendering in VizRT in the real-time engine on the touchscreen monitor. Is that more or less?
That's basically the workflow, yeah.
And also, the folks at home saw some of the augmented reality graphics we did. I think we had the field on the desk here, and also some of the player and team stats we put in the front of the desk with the player models on top. That's all triggered from LaunchPad as well?
That's all triggered from LaunchPad. So basically, we've built in, but we have a special software LaunchPad that we use. It's called Gateway. That its primary purpose was to talk to video servers. So if you want to go and if you have rights to video of certain leagues and you want to go and telestrate on it, or go and kind of show, like there's a bunch of different tracking softwares you can use to kind of follow stuff around as people move around on the field, but that's all integrated into here as well. If you want to use that, that's basically what Gateway does, is it talks to those video servers and integrates that into this. But we kind of hijacked it and rigged it so it can also go and talk to a whole separate computer, which Trio computers. Trio is a subsection of Viz, which is basically the manually operated control play out of it. So it talks to that, and then Trio. So when you push a button on LaunchPad, it will send a command using Gateway to the Trio, which will then pull up a new page that it is referenced and send that to an AR engine, which then in coordination with any kind of augmented reality camera you have, like I think we use NCAM, will go and project that seemingly out of the table. Really, that's just a scene that's all in the camera. But yeah, so basically it's, again, just all these different components talking to each other with 3 different computers to pull up those graphics.
So it sounds like a bit of savvy engineering behind the scenes, so it's actually quite seamless when I'm just pressing things, I'm triggering them.
There's a whole lot going on.
Intuitively, yeah. But it looks very cool. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I always do. It also sounds like I've got a Ferrari behind me that maybe in the convention I was driving it 10 miles an hour, just using some of the basic analytics.
You said the child lock on it.
Yeah. you guys handcuffed me a little bit there. No, so it can do a lot of video input and clips and telestration and social media and all sorts of features. Multi-view, I think there was one with different camera layouts. So I got to ask, with all these features, what is your favorite one up here? What or your favorite little integration that you've got going on?
Well, my favorite is actually, it's pretty simple, honestly. It's just the data analysis that we have, the visual data. So when we're talking about the heat map stuff and the shot plots, and just being able to see the visual representation of these numbers, I think it really helps you just understand the games that are happening in a different way. I mean, you're watching 45 minutes of it, and at halftime, you're like, oh, I think this one team's playing a certain way, and then you look and you kind of actually can see, you have hard concrete evidence that you can use to prove your point and prove how you're feeling and see that you were right or completely wrong. But just being able to see data, because I mean, soccer is such a free-flowing game that it's hard to, it's not like basketball, oh, they're 10 for 20 behind the three-point line. That's an easy stat to know something and how the game is happening. But with soccer, people passing it all over the place, there's never breaking the action. Having visual data to kind of translate all of that nonstop action into something that you can see and tell a story from, I think is really cool and really powerful, and I mean, just makes the game for me so much more interesting and helps me understand it.
Holistic overview of the many things that are happening, you know, as the clock ticks without those breaks or stoppages in play. A similar question then, what's sort of been the coolest client integration or story or interesting way that they've maybe used LaunchPad that you didn't see coming or were surprising to you? Is there one thing that sort of sticks out in your head?
Well, I don't know stuff I didn't see coming because I have to build all the stuff.
You better see it coming.
Yeah. If I don't see it coming, I don't know how they're doing it because I have to make sure it all works. But I think a couple of the coolest things have been the first time we got a client to use the AR integration, be in their Doha studio in Qatar, use that for the El Clasico back in December.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the amount of long hours we spent getting that to actually work, and for it to kind of pop off so seamlessly and see that, well, I guess I didn't actually see it on air because I don't live in the Middle East, but to see a grainy video of it 10 hours later, shot on the cell phone, and to see, okay, it's working and it's cool. That was one of the coolest moments just because that's one of the bigger projects we've done with it, and to see that pulled off was really neat. I think in terms of actual use, kind of similar to what you're doing with Footballers Convention, another one of those watch-alongs that's been popular is the Kickoff by Ladbrokes, which are just some guys in London, I think, or somewhere in England that basically just get up each Saturday morning and use LaunchPad while watching the Premier League. And it's really interesting to seeing it in a non-traditional broadcast sense, where it's just these people who are huge soccer fans using it to help show their fandom and help explain these games. So they're really using the those data analysis features that I was talking about earlier a lot, which I think is the most cool part of it. It's hard with a lot of broadcast things where you just have a short segment to go up and show a ton of stuff, but when they're sitting there for a couple hours and have this really powerful tool at their hands, they're really able to use a lot of these features that sometimes are hard to and sometimes get overlooked. And
it's also interesting to see what a fan is doing as opposed to, you know, a professional broadcast analyst, right? Where they have to, you know, give you a story that like you said, fits in 30-second hits or is you know, goes along with other things that are in their whole production experience, you know, just a fan's take on things. I thought that was interesting, and I'm a big fan of what they're doing. I don't think the convention would be doing what we were doing if they didn't show us the light a little bit.
For sure.
With that said, you spent a little time, as we mentioned earlier, with the convention, watching a match, using some LaunchPad. How did it feel being on the other side of the camera, being on-air talent, as opposed to, you know, helping give them a tool or tools that they need to tell a story?
Well, it was nice for me because I'm constantly using this and testing stuff every day to actually know where things are, to find stuff quickly. But being up in front of the camera, you realize how you have to multitask. You have to be thinking about what you're saying while you're going and pulling stuff up, and you're saying it, and you have to make sure you're looking towards the camera enough. And so just kind of being aware of you're not blocking the screen. So kind of knowing certain things to make sure we can build this and continue to improve it to make it easier for talent to use. Just kind of more tools to make it so they can think less and find what they need to find easier, get where they need to go easier, I think is kind of important to do, because it's hard to multitask and think about that stuff while you're under pressure.
Simplicity and quickness are talent's best friend. So with that in mind, how do you foresee, what's in the future for LaunchPad? Is there a new feature you can tell us about, or any sort of development, or something on the platform side, or what can we expect in the future from this bad boy behind us?
Well, some things we're looking to integrate over the next year. One thing that's been kind of starting to grow in popularity is the expected goals data,
XG.
Which I think especially for people like yourself and like the Kickoff guys, where they kind of have more time to go and delve into the data and are a bit more on the fan side of things. I think it's still, some people are skeptical of the new wave data analytics. So I think that's one thing we're working on integrating that right now. And so just finding a way to kind of visually tell it in the best way we can and make it easy for everyone to understand. Since it's not completely widespread yet, it's getting there. But that's one thing we're looking at. We have real-time data, but the way we're doing it here is we have to the page isn't refreshing on its own because it's constantly, when you
Your
go to a new page, it makes that data call. So we're working on, say again, because we kind of had to change things and rethink things with these watch-along type of shows that are happening, becoming more popular, because normally this is just used at halftime or after the game, not during the game. So you don't have to worry about new scores coming in, new stuff. So we're working on adding just a feature for it to automatically refresh the page. So these watch-along type shows and yourself, you don't have to go and leave the page and come back to go and get that fresh data. It'll just automatically come in on its own.
Yeah, just refresh while you're sitting up there on the page that you want to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. I'm excited for that one. I'm most excited for that one. I love that. So last question before we get you out of here is, all right. So people have seen LaunchPad. They think it's cool. Obviously, I do. How does someone get it? Who do they contact? What do they have to do to make that happen? Is there someone they can reach out to?
Best person would probably be Jeff Heimbold, our RCS's Reality Check Systems business development guru. So, I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know his phone number. We'll have it.
I think so.
On here.
We'll put his info for you.
But he's a big fan of this system. He's great at kind of helping people understand its usefulness. He can help you understand different ways you can use it if you're interested, because there's so many different ways. It's not just the way you see it on here. Because we don't even get to show the video stuff on here. There's so much more to do with it. There's so much social media integration you can do. So he's a great guy to talk to about it, find out what's the best way for you to use it and how it can really just improve whatever show you're hoping to do with it.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Kevin.
Of course.
Appreciate your time. You're a busy man as always, and I want to get you back in the lab so you can help improving this bad boy and making it as cool of a tool as possible. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks, guys. Next segment, I'll be looking into some other features, so stay tuned for that. Cheers.